everyone, and welcome back to the channel for today's video. So today's video is going to be one that I've kind of just haven't got around to and finally managed to get around to doing, which is decorating Mad Hatter's house that we got in the premium shop during the last rotation of stuff. And I wanted to get this done before the next update because obviously this house isn't that new anymore, but I did want to give it a decoration as I'm currently making my whole Peaceful Meadow into an Alice in Wonderland theme. So it was kind of the next house and the next step that I had in that plan. So let's get started. So as you can see, I've placed the house on this last section I have on the left hand side. I already have builds for both the Cheshire Cat's tree house as well as Alice's house up on my channel, so if you do want to see them, they'll be linked down below. But that is what is currently in the other two spots on this left hand side, so I wanted to make sure I could include Mad Hatter's house here as well. And as you can tell, I've put out a load of furniture that I know I want to be using. Now for the pathway into this area, I wanted it to feel really mad and eclectic, so I used a bunch of the different rocks that you have in the furniture menu, which are accessible to everyone, and also some of the little gnome wraiths pathway that is from Scrooge's store. So if you don't have these or don't recognise them, they are from Scrooge's and they just function like little floor tiles. So I added those around, and then I started placing in my tea table, which I hadn't included yet in any of my Alice builds, and I knew that Mad Hatter's house having the tea table made the most sense because obviously it is his tea party after all. So I decided to pick out a bunch of random chairs. Some of them are actually Alice in Wonderland ones that we got in the update, and then some are other kind of eclectic chairs that I felt like just worked with the setup, and put it around the Alice in Wonderland table and started adding some of the items to the table as well. Now, as well as adding some bits and bobs to the table, I also started to decide what I wanted to add around it. Now, as I wanted Mad Hatter's area to kind of feel the most eccentric out of all of the Alice builds I've done, I wanted to make sure I could include a bunch of furniture, a bunch of bigger items, such as a lot of the teapots you get from Scrooge's, as well as the Realm, a lot of the big teapots. And I also used some other random furniture as well that you wouldn't expect to see in an outdoor build, such as the little cabinets and wardrobes and things like that you get from both the character friendship lines as well as Scrooge's. Now, these always seem a bit of a random addition on an outdoor build, and I don't tend to do this, but obviously as it is a mad build and it fits Mad Hatter's character, I also wanted it to feel like how it does in the movie, where he does just have random bits and bobs about. He has all his furniture just everywhere, and I felt like it just fit with his character, being able to bring some of the traditional indoor furniture outdoors. So I did start adding some of those in as well to bulk out the area, and started using them to be able to map out kind of how I wanted to do the border of the whole garden, because it is quite a big space, how I wanted to make sure I could include everything and also not have it feel too bare or too gappy, because I wanted it to feel very busy and very eccentric. Once I'd mapped in most of the furniture I wanted to use, I then went and kind of just removed all the furniture I knew I wouldn't end up using. I tend to just put out furniture that are kind of like in my ideas to use, and I don't always end up using everything, so there definitely isn't as much furniture as there could have been in this build, but I wanted to use a lot of foliage as well as the flowers from the star path to really bulk it out. So if you are someone on a lower item limit, you could definitely do this build, but just obviously maybe make it not as busy. So there was a lot of furniture I don't end up using, so that is something to bear in mind. As well as that, I also wanted to map in the hedges for the main pathway. This isn't obviously technically a part of the build, but obviously as it is kind of adjacent to this area, I needed to get it mapped in and kind of have it ready for the rest of the biome anyway. So that is something just to bear in mind, that this is how I'm going to be doing the pathway. I do go in later off camera and I finish off the hedges and add in loads of decorations in here, as well as the well, which is something you can see in my streams. If you do come and hang out in a live stream, you'll see those, or maybe in the other Alice builds that are coming, but that is something I do spend a little bit of time on, so that is just something to bear in mind. But I obviously wanted to just make sure the whole build felt tied together and I had a good idea of how much spacing I had for trees and bushes, because all around the edge of the tea table as well as around the edge of the hedges, I wanted to really use a bunch of different trees and plants to make it feel very overgrown and kind of like you've stumbled upon it in Wonderland. Now, as you can see with the foliage and trees in here, I did go for a big mismatch of plants. I did want to use some of the same ones that I'd used in both the Alice build and the Cheshire Cat build, so you will see me pulling from those throughout. Obviously, because I wanted to keep the same theme going between all three of these builds and pretty much through the whole of the meadow as I go forward as well, to obviously make it feel like it all just matches really, really well and feels like a very similar kind of biome. But I also wanted to include a bunch of random trees, like I added in a swampy tree and a couple of the maples, just to give it a lot of colour. And then as well, when I added foliage, I added a lot of the different colours of bushes, so I added some like the purples and the pinks, as well as Eternity Isle plants. I added obviously a bunch of plants from the Vale, especially the big flowers and everything like that, because they obviously more of that whimsical style that goes with Alice in Wonderland. But just so you know, if you do have some of the foliage missing because you don't have DLCs or because you have a lower item limit, I just feel like you can definitely achieve the look with just using a bunch of eclectic ones and really mismatching colours to make it look weird and wacky. Now to finish up, you can see I'm just fitting in the hedges. This was more for my own benefit of knowing where everything was going to go, but I wanted to make sure everything was tweaked and ready so that the build could be completed. So here is the final build. We are starting from the entrance of where the mismatched pathway is, and as you can see, we have got the brick wall on one side bordering it off, and then the fountain on the right to introduce you in. And as soon as you come down this pathway, we've got some of the floating bubbles with the tiny chairs, the little perfume bottles, and some lights in to really feel kind of just weird and magical. On the left, as you can see next to the house, I have put a bunch of kind of random kind of furniture to fit with Mad Hatter, but also included some fabrics and things like that to obviously go with the fact that he makes hats and makes clothing and things like that. So I wanted that to kind of be a nod to his character as well. And then on the right, as you can see, I have put the tea table. I've added some of the Alice in Wonderland themed foods, as well as lots of tea and also eclectic items on the table. And I also added in some meadow and beach grass to give it a much more overgrown look in here, as you can see, leading towards all of the outer foliage with lots of the dancing flowers and things like that. Along the pathway, I also added in a bunch of the signs that we got from the realm, as well as you can get in Scrooge's store, that have all the different directions on them. And then as I head round the side of the main pathway, you can obviously just see the giant teapot and the last few bits of decoration. And here are some shots of the final build. I hope you guys did enjoy. I'm really happy that I got this build done. I'm sorry it took me so long. It genuinely I've had the furniture laying out in my meadow for a long time. If you watch my live streams, you'll know that it's definitely taken me way too long, but I'm glad I got it done. Obviously, I'm one step closer to having a whole Alice in Wonderland meadow done, so I think the only two houses I have left now is the pink castle and also the like greenhouse flower castle that we got in the last update. So those are next on the list. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing this one. I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did enjoy, and if you do want to see any particular builds from me, whether they're Alice in Wonderland themed or not, then let me know down in the comments below. I obviously will be doing a bunch of builds with the new items and houses we get from the upcoming updates, so don't worry, I will be doing those. But obviously if there's anything you want to see in particular, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!